Good evening. This is Gloria Taylor Brown with the Gathering of Priestesses. I want to welcome you to our 48th show. We're delighted that you could be here with us this evening, and we're also delighted that we have with us this evening Miss Althea Gray from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and she was recommended to us by our favorite astrologer, Rose Marcus from up in Vancouver. So thank you, Rose, for sending us Althea. We love having her. We've been doing some talking while we were waiting for this to get started, and talking about different things and about different ways of being in the world. And so I'm just thinking about it, and I was thinking about it as I told Althea. I looked at myself whenever I came on here today, and I realized I had my Aphrodite hair, and Raven wanted to know how I got Aphrodite hair, and I said I washed it, and that's what happens whenever I get it. So our goddess for the evening will be Aphrodite, and our guest for the evening will be Althea. And so I'd like to introduce you to, of course, Catherine Ravenwood is on as our co-host, and she is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Althea, I'd like to welcome you to a gathering of priestesses, and I'd like to ask you the question that we ask all of our guests to start out, which is, what brought you onto the priestess path?
Well, I think that holding the divine feminine on this planet holds a place of love, unconditional love. And whenever I think of the ultimate goddess to me is Mary, the one of great, or Kuan Yin. She holds many names, the one who holds love and compassion unconditionally on this earth. And so I'm very much aligned with that energy.
So when did you first start walking this path? I mean, we talked earlier about you being a designer and living in Boston, but was your priestess space, was that part of your priestess space, or do you feel that you just came here to be who you are?
Well, it's interesting. I have a very small family, and mostly a family of women.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother, who was from Nicaragua, was a curandera. And she held her own space and her own power. And she once said to me, if she were not a woman, she would be president of Nicaragua. And I believe that she would have been. She cured many people, and she always was able, even in those times, 1800s, early 1900s, still to hold her space as a very strong woman. And so she was a great inspiration to me, and helped me hold my own truth and follow my own visions, and to be as complete as I feel today. So she was a great source of inspiration to me, and of course I've passed that on to my daughter, who is pretty much a self-made woman.
Oh.
And she lives in New York, and she has her master's degree in poetry. She's just a very, very exceptional person. So all of my family, we have a family mostly of women, and strong women. Strong women.
Well, I can tell that you are a strong woman, and I was looking at your website and some of the things that you've done, and you've done some rather exceptional things, and you are also doing some rather exceptional things as you're moving forward in the world. Could you tell us a little bit about your healing school?
Yes, actually, I'm calling it an institute. And I thought a lot about it. I said, do I really want a school? Do I want someone to be like me? Do I want to do that? And I said, no. My whole idea as a healer is to to bring people into their own truth so that they can do exceptional things themselves. So what I decided to do was to help healers be better healers. So many people are training and studying healing out there, but either they're not professional enough, or they don't understand that they are, in a way, a spiritual physician. And so I found that my field is lacking, and yet there's so many professionals that I have encountered who want to switch professions, but they want to step into it as another professional.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to create this institute to give people the foundation, the basics of setting up a practice, and to invite exceptional teachers from all over the world to teach at my institute, and to have healers take those courses and add it to what they have, what they envision. Every healer has their own strengths and weaknesses, and my strength is building the human spirit. My daughter, who has these abilities, her strength is really the physical form, the physical body. She tunes into that very, very strongly. And so helping people as healers to understand, well, what is my strength, and how to help that blossom so that you can be professional about what you do. And in my field, healers aren't often invited to speak at conferences and as such, and I wondered why. And it's because most healers can't tell you what they're doing. They don't really understand the art of healing, and they can't speak about it in a way that makes sense. And so I want to change that. I really want to bring healers, have them step up to the plate and be professional about what they do.
Well, I know that Raven holds some very strong opinions on this subject because I've heard them and over the years. Raven was a massage therapist for a number of years in Seattle. She had a very full practice, and she finally found that she wanted to move away from that, and she's a trained alchemical healing instructor, as am I. But one of the things that we've discussed a number of times is the fact that even people who have learned a practice have not learned the container that it needs to go in. In other words, how to be a professional in that particular practice. They go to a Reiki workshop for a weekend and they think they're a Reiki master. And they hang out the shingle and start treating people when that is something that, they have not achieved mastery. And they're a little scary, frankly.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to bring Raven up here. And Raven, I know that you've got some strong opinions on this subject, so I'd let you say your own opinions.
Oh boy, I don't even know where to start on this one.
Flicking.
Oh, okay. Well, I think one of the things that disturbs me the most about people who are doing healing work and don't know what they're doing. And they think that it's okay because, I'm channeling God or something.
Yes.
And it's like, well, that's well and good, but they could be hurting someone. They could be hurting other people in the room, as like Gloria said, and many of us know this flicking energy. I was at a big event here in Albuquerque, and I was reading cards. And it was the first year they had this event, and they had card readers and healers up and down the hallway. And the woman across from me, it was one of the most notoriously, egotistically corrupt healers I've ever been around. And she was pulling energy out people and throwing it right across the hall at me. I finally stood up, cleared everything, made a giant alchemical shield to protect me, and she said, "Oh, Raven, you're helping me." I said, "That's right." You know, because I didn't want to, make a scene. But I had to finally stop and put up my shields because she knew enough to do something to pull stuff out. And I think people do know that. And a lot of people have the intention they want to do something good, but they pull it out and then they don't know what to do with it. And so it's loose. And
I agree.
yeah, and the other thing is, if, of course, I'm sure you know, we all know this, if you don't replace that, what you've taken out, it's like a vacuum. It's just going to suck right back in. And so I think that as this being able to help people to be more professional, that's a big, huge thing, because
it's huge.
Yes,
it's
because
huge.
having some techniques is not the same as being a healer, and it certainly is not the same as being authentic.
I agree with you, and I actually call being a healer is almost a calling, because I know that I trained with one teacher alone for 9 years, and I'm not asking people to train that long, but I want people to understand that it's quite an intense training, and it has to, your skills as a healer also coincide with your level of consciousness.
Yes.
And as you develop as a healer, your consciousness develops, and you go through rites of passage. So even though I have the genetic makeup to be a healer, my grandmother was a wonderful curandera, I had to earn that right to be to step into someone's subtle fields,
Right.
and make alterations. And I always tell my clients, would you go to a physician who couldn't tell you what he was doing? Would you do that? Would you put your trust into someone who can't tell you what's wrong?
Right. We're just going to do a little surgery here, but I'm not sure exactly what we're looking for. But
yes, there you go.
Maybe if I just start cutting on your stomach for a while, I'll get a vision.
I'll get a vision.
Yeah.
It's sad that healing is being taught that way, and I hope in my time on this planet, I'm able to take this world of healing and bring it into a new paradigm, a new place, and so that healers, people who do wish to enter this field, can feel that it is a profession.
Yes.
It's a calling, yes, but it's also a profession.
And that it's recognized by other professionals.
Yes.
We can't just have this division of, the doctor does it this way and the healer does it that way. You can't divide it up like that. And the Western medicine doctors and all of that have to be trained also, so that we can recognize the holistic approach. And there will be some people who specialize in things and do it very well, and other people who do something else very well. But if we're not being professional, like you say, the doctor who doesn't know what they're doing, or a healer who doesn't know what they're doing, it's not good.
Catastrophe happens.
Yes.
And I have so many people recently who've come to me. I started a whole, again, a very professional, very succinct way of clearing the unseen world, the negative unseen world, or the world that's affecting us in some way. And lately, I see a lot of cordings and portals running through people, but the average person has about 3 or 4. I am getting cases where there are people who have as many as 49, 50. And I ask them, have you seen a shaman or someone? It's almost as though, it reminds me of the story of Mickey Mouse, who put Merlin's hat on and the wand, and they went amok and did the opposite of what they hoped they were going to accomplish. And these people are left in a terrible mess. And most of the time they'll go to a physician, and and they'll treat them for anxiety or sleeplessness or depression, but in reality they have this whole other mess happening in their subtle fields. And so I'm hoping that I'm going to be speaking this year at the American Society of Dowsers National Conference and at the Psychotronics Conference in Chicago in July, all about the unseen world and how it affects people. And I think all healers and frankly people who are in self-help professions should know about this.
You know, I want to just say something else too, if I may,
Yes.
which is it's I love what you're saying, and I could not agree with you more. I just think that there's a very low overall quality of ethics in too many people who have their hands inside your fields. The other thing that bothers me is, even though I'm an alchemical healer, that's a trademark. I studied with Nikki Scully, who I have great respect for.
I do too.
And I love Nikki, and I love what I've learned from her, but I stopped using the word healer. And she asked me why. She said, "Why don't you call yourself a healer, Raven? You're so good at this." I said, "Well, I don't call myself a healer because I don't want to do healings. First of all, people come to you and they want a healing, and they go immediately back into their pain. They're not taking responsibility. And so then the next time they get a treatment, they say, 'Oh, I want a healing,' and they go immediately back into their pain. So everything that's been done is undone. I'm happy to do alchemy. I'm happy to do transformation. I'm happy to do a lot of other things. And it's a semantic, but people get stuck on this word healing, and they expect someone else to do it for them. And I think that all of us have to take responsibility for our own intentions, our own health, so that when we go to someone like you and say, please help me be well, please help me figure out what's going to be wrong, that we are not expecting you, the practitioner, to heal me.
Well, it's a
two-way street, and I would love to see people expand their consciousness more when they go to get treatments, so that more can happen.
Well, I found it's interesting. I so agree with you, and I wanted to solve that issue because people come to healers because they feel helpless. They've been to a therapist. They know that doctors may not be able to help them. Maybe they've seen a shaman or they've seen a healer, and they're in this sort of desperate state. And I ask myself, why don't people heal? Why do people have this endless cycle of one healer after another, and after another? And then I started to look at why are people stuck? Why can't they go to the next level? And I discovered that people have ancestral stories that are sitting in their bones. And if you don't clear the ancestral stories, the person is prone to reproducing those stories over and over, even though their heart and their will wants to do something else. And then I found that people, through trauma in their lives at different times, part of their spirit leaves. And then what comes into place is something that helps them to adapt. And most people have 5 parts of their spirit lost. But when I go in and I find, do journeying, and I find that the person has 10, 15, 20 parts of themselves missing, and then they're this complex, they're using complex sets of behavior to adapt and to live, they're not themselves. And so you have to reclaim and retrieve those lost parts of that person. And then beyond that, this is recent, I discovered that people are missing parts of their body, their subtle body. And I have this session called the Bone Collector session, where the person I take them into this space in the spirit world where we can do things that we can't do on Earth. And I bring in this large mirror, and it is amazing. Some people look in that mirror and they see they don't have a head, or they're missing parts of themselves. And what I further discovered is that the person who is missing their head, in real life, people don't see them. So there is always a guardian who's taking care of the lost parts of you. And that guardian is always willing to give that back to you fully healed at a time that you're ready. And so we do this reclamation process. And then there's further bone collecting, a deeper bone collecting sessions where people hand back to other people things that they have deposited on them and they're carrying through life. So when you think about this bundle of things, it's no wonder people have trouble healing. So a healer has to be aware of those things so that they can actually get the person to the point where they can heal. And so, those are the things that I will be teaching and helping people, healers, understand, because that's a huge problem. Huge.
Well, that's a very powerful statement that you just made. And I really respect you for that. And that's not an average healer.
No.
That's very exceptional. That's very exceptional.
Thank you.
To be able to go into that level with people is something very exceptional. So I'm sure that's taken you a lifetime to put together.
You're right. It took me, I didn't get to step into my shoes as a healer until I was about 50 years old. And I studied a lot all around the world with great teachers, was very compelled to do that. Never thought I would be doing this, but you're right. And it took me going through my own development, my own levels of consciousness to have this extraordinary awareness about the human condition, the Earth's condition, this whole imprint, the imprints that are on this Earth that we are constantly in reaction to. And so how do we deal with those stories? We are a bundle, besides that, a bundle of information. We are the Akashic records. Every cell in our body has a memory of who we are, what we are from the beginning of time. And so sometimes we have to quiet stories from past lives where the person's in a situation that's like post-traumatic stress, and they can't see, no matter what they do, they can't resolve it. And then when you go into the past lives and you release some of that story, then the person is able to deal with it as a reality just by itself, without this other noise in the background that's preventing them from actually hearing. So healing, you can see just from the little bit that I'm sharing with you, is quite a deep profession, and it takes a lot of skill and a lot of getting out of the way yourself, and listening, and being as empty as you can for that person, so that you can hold their container for to help them cross the waters. And it's not easy. It's a lot of work. So when I hear, and I'm with you, when I hear you say that, there's so many people taking weekend classes and they don't understand the depth of what healers really do, it makes me sad.
Yes. And I think that people have good intentions.
Yes.
That's not enough.
No, because a physician could have good intentions, but if he's not skillful, you could die.
Right. I mean, a person with their scalpel in their hand, it's a lot more obvious than someone who's working with a subtle energy body with their hands or their vision, or their words. So I recognize, and I don't mean to discount that people don't, that people need healing. They do, but boy, I would just like to see more people engage in a more responsible relationship with the person they're going to. They skip around. They go from healer to healer to healer, and then they come back around to the first one and don't even remember what happened.
No, because they're not.
It's like a dance card or something. It's I don't know.
It's common, and and it made me, because of that, it made me think, why does that happen? And that's how I started this what I call a jump start. In other words, I like going through this process with a person, and then they can make a choice to see anybody they want, whether it's a physician, a therapist. And healers also need to know when they need to refer someone, refer their client. I had a client recently who really needed therapy. They needed to get in touch with their mundane world and how to operate in it, and to maybe understand, well, I'm like this because of this. She was becoming too supernatural about life, and supernatural causes for things, and kind of magical. And so I had to, it took a lot of work for me to convince her that that her next steps were actually to see a therapist. And I was so grateful that she did this Jumpstart program with me, and she was able to hear me, and she actually is with a therapist now. And she wanted to keep me on board, and I said, no, you need to have someone else that you can trust, and I don't want to interfere with that process. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a letter to her therapist and explained what I did and what I thought. I gave some suggestions, and the therapist was very grateful for that. So as healers, we can be professionals. We can do this. You don't have to be woo-woo. And I hope before I leave this world that I can train a few wonderful healers who can pass the torch on and make this work what it should be.
Well, I find that fascinating, and I've been sitting here just listening to both of you because I never wanted to be a healer. I know
none of us started off wanting to do this.
Never wanted to do it. Never wanted to have anything to do with health, medication, any of this stuff. I actually went to see Nikki Scully the first time back in 1985 because she was doing stuff about Egypt, and I've been fascinated with Egypt since I was 5 years old. But I had no interest in healing. And so when she came out with these classes on healing, it's like, well, I'll go and hang out with you because you talk about Egypt, but I'm not really interested in all this healing stuff. And it's been really interesting because it's almost like I backed into the whole situation. What I wanted to do was very much out there in the real world, working with people, empowering women, empowering people to be who they were in the physical real world. Mm-hmm. And as I've gone along, what's happened is I have become more and more involved with both the medical community and the holistic medical community. And as I frequently say, I've been getting my medical degree one disease and one drug at a time. So, because I'm taking care of my husband and taking care of myself. And so at this point, I'm quite conversant with both the holistic and the standard medical procedures. That was never where I wanted to be. I mean, and if you ask me today, I would still tell you I don't want to have anything to do with that stuff. That's not me. That's not who I am. Yet, as I work as a teacher, and that's what I am, I find myself more and more moving into that space of holding that space for people to heal themselves, to find who they really are. And I don't use the term healer either, because as I said, I never wanted to be that person. And I think that that's something people have to look at, because it doesn't mean you have to go out and put on a white coat and a stethoscope. My son is very good at that. He's a neurosurgeon. He likes operating on people. But, not me. I don't want the blood and guts. I don't even want the imaginary blood and guts. So as we move into that space, I think we have to learn, where we're willing to work. And I do walk in two worlds. I walk in it most of the time. And so if you're willing to walk in those two worlds, the world of the spirit and the world of the physical, mm-hmm. and you find yourself working with the bone collector, because that's where I found myself. And I call her the one who sings our bodies into being. And she basically goes out and collects those little lost parts and brings them back and says, I've got it, I'll hang on to it for you. And working with that inner being, that spiritual connection, and working with spiritual connection has become something that I don't want to be separate from me. I don't want it to be about somebody else's technique or tool or whatever.
Exactly.
Because I know that I'm stepping into a space where I'm working with what is directed through me to work with. And I haven't got a clue most of the time where it's coming from.
So, well, I think that healers are very deeply guided, and that's something, it takes a lot of getting yourself out of the way to be able to hear that guidance that you get. And I am so with you. I don't believe in creating cookie cutter healers, and I like people to make sure that when they are working with someone, that they're really hearing and listening to them as individuals. And for healers who are training and wanting to be healers, and I like calling myself a healer, by the way, it took a lot of growing up to be able to say, and confidence to finally say, yes, I'm a healer, and not feel uncomfortable about it. Because in the past, I was not comfortable saying that I'm a healer. And yes, healers, to allow a healer to evolve into who they are, that's my dream, and that's why I changed the name from school to institute, because I didn't want to create a school or an idea or a path like that. I want people to give them tools so they can be evolved.
No, I agree with you on that, and as the tagline for this program is to educate, evolve, and enlighten. And I don't believe we can be enlightened unless we evolve, unless we become educated. Mm-hmm. I don't think you get enlightenment, like Saul on the road to Taurus. You've got to have some education there to build upon. You've got to have some evolution to who you really are in order to move into that space of enlightenment, so that you can be open and honest and available. And that's one of the things that I most feel that I am, and as if you want to use the term healer, as I am available. I am willing to be a conduit for spirit. And that means I get my ego out of the way.
Yes.
I find it very disturbing when, personally, my experience has been that I have put myself in a trusting situation to have healing work done on me, and I find out that someone's ego is driving that
Mm.
And that's why I'd hardly let anybody touch me anymore.
I'm the same. I'm the
I
same.
am extremely reticent to
Mm-hmm.
let people work on me.
I have to agree with you.
Very well. And because I've just had too much toxicity pour out of people's egos onto me, and I can't handle it, especially when someone's vulnerable and they're injured, or all of these things you talked about, and they finally go to someone and go, help, 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 and that person spews their ego on them. Oh, there's got to be some level of hell meant for that.
Well, you know, it's interesting, as I said, to be a healer. It's kind of a calling in a sense, and you go through many levels of rites of passage, and one of them is dissolving of the self, the ego, and I think it's truly a profession of service. But if it's not look, and I don't mean victim here when I say service, okay? But it does take an evolution in consciousness, and so it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not really a profession for everyone. But I love it, and I am very proud and happy to say I'm a healer now.
Well, good for you. So, as I'm going to segue just a little bit here, and one of the things that I have been upholding in the last few shows is the idea that we should talk about a particular divinity. And with Althea on here tonight, and her very name means to the goddess.
Yes.
So Althea, Thea is the goddess. And I was thinking about, who is it that wants to be here tonight? Who is it that we want to talk about? And as I said, I had just washed my hair, and my hair has a life of its own. And the question is, how bad is that life going to be today? And I got to thinking that, maybe what's coming up today is Aphrodite. And I started looking, and I found this wonderful The Birth of Venus by Botticelli, and that's always been one of my favorite paintings. I think that the idea of Venus rising from the foam on there with the beauteous the long red hair, and it's kind of I think they call them an allegory is the story, but each piece of this art means something, and I'm not going to go into what it means, but my art history professor is talking in my ear about that each piece of the flowers, the trees, the way that they are there, every bit of it is a story in and of itself. And Raven and I and Althea, I don't know if we're enamored with the tarot cards. And the tarot cards, of course, each one of those tarot cards are the, each piece that is part of that tarot card means something. From the smallest flower to the largest figure, and to the meaning of the whole thing. And whenever I look at this painting, and it's, she's rising out of the foam on that beautiful half shell, and the flowers being blown and thrown around, and the angels, and and the woman who's standing there with a cloak ready to wrap her in it. But she is and has been the image of love since many. She's passionate love. She is the love of someone who reaches out for love. And I just wanted to share this with you, and it's such a lovely image. And Aphrodite was, the rising up from the sea foam. She brought us love, and she testing lovers along the way, some of whom, it gets a little complicated with the Greeks. But in fact, if any of you have Greek heritage, you know exactly what I mean. But this is truly a gorgeous painting and a master. Sandro Botticelli is just truly a master. So, but I was talking with Althea before we started, I talked about love and about the idea of love. And she had an interesting comment that she wanted to make, and I'd like her to make that for you. The idea of Eros, and when Eros enters a man's life, and whenever it comes into a woman's life. Would you be interested in going over that a little bit for the audience?
Yes. I believe that a woman in her 40s, really more near the middle to late 40s and 50s, they go through this an extraordinary experience where Aphrodite enters their life, and they blossom. They blossom before they enter this place of wisdom, and usually a male figure will come into that woman's life, and the person, it doesn't mean that the woman is going to be romantically involved with that man, but awakens her sexuality, awakens her sensuality, her poetry, everything. And this woman comes fully alive. And but a woman normally, has one foot on the ground and is saying, well, this is all awakened. I'm not going to run away with Eros right now because I have children and I have these responsibilities. And so most women don't sort of bite the fruit, but still they have this incredible experience that should not be taken lightly, because it's sort of a rite of passage to this next place, the crone place, where you go into this place of wisdom. Sometimes when Aphrodite enters a man's life, they're so seduced by it that by her that they think of it more of as a focus on the sexual side of it. They may focus on becoming awakened as a man, and this is the most delicious fruit in the world, and may run off into the sunset thinking this is real, and that's all that's real, and then sometimes jeopardize too much in the process. But Aphrodite is so important, and taking us to this next place of wisdom. And of course, I always equate wisdom and love together. She's very important, and I don't see her necessarily entering a person's life in their 20s or 30s or teens. I think of her as the person who takes you across to this next place, which is, I call the place of the crone. So that's my thoughts of Aphrodite.
Yeah, well, I thank you very much. And the thought of Aphrodite, the thought of love, what's the song? What the world needs now is love, sweet love. And it's one thing we have too little of. And I think that exploring the idea of how you can offer your love to the world is something that is truly must be melded with the idea of being a healer. And that's why I think it's so appropriate that we should discuss both of these tonight, is that it is a love that you have to have that has no object. In other words, I believe very much that you cannot have a love that says, I love you if. I love you if you do this way. Or I love you if you're healed. Or I love you if you do that. It has to be a love that is open-ended, that allows you to be loved no matter how you take the healing, no matter how you take the work that I do with you. And I don't know, Catherine, what do you think about that? Maybe I'm wandering.
I'm thinking a lot about that. The thing that's come to me is that when a true healing is happening, as Althea has been talking about the work that she does, and that she can say, I'm a healer, and she has these resources that she's mastered and she can go through. I would imagine, Althea, that you had to have amazing boundaries to be able to get there.
Yes,
And
I had
so,
to develop them. I
yeah.
did not have them before.
And I think that when someone can say, they can truly open their heart and say to someone, I love you. And as Gloria just described, without all this ego and conditional, it's because that person has come to master love from a place of great boundaries. And I think when we can separate ourselves enough to understand those boundaries, and we only do that because how we suffer and we're in pain and we get hurt, that you have to go through that whole process before you can unconditionally offer that. So as you said, Althea, you can hold that container as you do the healing. I don't think that anyone who is not a whole healer or who loves unconditionally can hold that container. I think it would be partial. I think it would be polluted. I think it would be misdirected. But I think someone who's gone through the boundaries, and it's like stained glass. You have all the pieces of the stained glass that create the beautiful whole, but they are all pieces. And I think that we have to go through that, and when we lose sight of how we're learning that, we can get very lost, either as a healer or however it is, just to be able to say to someone, I love you. And, you know, I think that there's levels. People will say, well, I love you, you know, and in some ways it's just something we say. But it's so much nicer to say, bye, love you, see you, love you, instead of saying, you rotten person, you know. I mean, it's a lovely thing to do, even if we don't really feel like, yes, I have unconditional love for that person. But that's one of the things we can do, is just start acting loving. I read something a long time ago that said, it's not just that we're nice to the people we like the people we're nice to. And I think if we start acting like we love each other, gosh, maybe we will. Maybe we'll experience what that means. Not only that person would experience our love, but we might understand what it's like to love someone. And then I think at that point, people could start being better healers also.
You know, that process of love. I think what helped me, I always watch myself with judgments. And of course, you know, judgments being discerning, you know, it's really something you have to watch carefully. And I would listen to the language that I would give myself. And oh, I'm a little bit round. Oh, you know, I'm getting this little line here or this and that. And one day, I just said, I can't change, you know, time and the evolution of who I am and how I age or the way I think. And I finally said, I am who I am, and you know, I like it. I like who I am, and I don't need to have someone prove that to me. I like it. I love me unconditionally. And that I can't tell all of your viewers and listeners tonight that when you get to that place, it is truly you're truly free. You're truly, truly free. And it took a long time for me to get to that place, because our whole system is sort of set up in, well, making comparisons, making judgments. This isn't okay, that's not okay. But we don't know how to just allow. And but when you get to that place of self-love on that level where it really, oh, I can't tell you how wonderful that feels to be in that place where no longer, no matter where you are or the circumstances, you're not in this place of judgment of yourself.
Right. And I think that to be able to be in that place allows you to love someone else because you're not expecting them to fill in the blanks where you don't love yourself. It's like that, like, you know, my partner must tell me that they love me every day because I don't love myself. And therefore, I have to be fulfilled that way. I don't think I'm beautiful, so my partner needs to tell me I'm beautiful. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as a reader, I get this a lot. People want to know about their soulmate and are they getting married? And I say, for God's sake, who are you? What are you bringing to this? And they say, what do you mean?
Yes.
I say, forget the soulmate. Who are you? And they look at me blankly, totally blank. It's like, no. Visualize yourself in the perfect relationship. Quit visualizing the perfect partner. Visualize you as in a perfect partnership. And they do not like this. They get so uncomfortable.
There's no orientation towards that kind of completeness with oneself. And it's part of our media and our culture. And but there's not a lot of orientation towards feeling complete.
No, there is
oneself. Yeah.
And your bone grandmother would probably tell you that's a big missing bone right there, huh?
Mm-hmm. I had a wonderful grandmother, wonderful, wise grandmother. Yes.
I think grandmothers are truly a gift. My grandmother was a healer and a gardener that grew herbs and used to force me to drink these horrible green drinks that now my friends are trying to make me drink.
Well, because we love you, Gloria.
Yeah, I know you do. And so I understand this, and I also know that this is part of who we are, and part of being a priestess is walking in this path. And the reason for this show is because there's a lot of women out there who are not quite sure who they are, and they know that they're no longer the little girl who's chasing after everything that goes down the road. They know that they're expressing something here. And being a priestess, accepting the role of a priestess, and a priestess to me is someone that allows the deity to work through you. That we are their hands, we are their eyes, we are their mouth, we are their presence here on earth. So we are the ones that are making things happen, whether we are healing or we are loving or we are kind or we are unkind. And we are the ones that are bringing this into the material world. And as we bring this into the material world, we have to take responsibility for it. Because I think one of the things that underlying everything we've been talking about is responsibility. And that is owning your own space, owning your own place. If you're doing healing work, that you are responsible for what is being done. It's not the other person. If someone is doing healing work on you, you are responsible for what is going on as well. If you are going to see a doctor, you have to be responsible for what is going on there as well. You cannot surrender your will completely. I don't care. Even if you're under anesthesia, you still have made a choice. And you still are being there as the most responsible person you can be at that time. But whenever you are working with a healer or when you are being a healer, being responsible is, I think, the core of that being.
Well, that is owning some part of who you are and the choices you make. It took me, I contemplated one word for about, I'd say, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And the word was faith. And you know what I came to finally understand what faith means?
What did faith mean?
The ultimate belief in oneself.
Mm,
Mm.
that's good. That's very
It took
good.
a long time to understand that word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we take many things on faith, you know, and you know, we some of the things we take on faith are probably based in fallacies. So if it is ourself that we are having faith in, then we are looking at those things in the core of our being. So
It's taking responsibility.
yeah, I could continue in this conversation, by the way, for another couple of 3 hours. So,
Well, just let me say one more thing, then I'll be quiet. I think that's beautiful what you said, Althea, and I had not thought of faith in that way. But it's taking responsibility, but it's also opening up. It also opens a place within us to allow.
mm-hmm.
It does.
And to me, that's what faith is having a place to allow something else to happen to make things better, whether it's divine intervention or supreme self-responsibility, self-love, or serendipitous miracles. I don't care, but if you don't have faith, nobody can.
It's a very important ingredient in life.
Yes.
Otherwise, what is this journey about?
Right. God help us. Yeah. Okay.
Before I let go and we move on to saying goodnight and saying what we're going to be doing next, I did want to mention that one of the possible definitions of the name Aphrodite is she who moves delicately.
Mm.
And, you know, in a way, that's what we're talking about, too. You have to move delicately whenever you're moving in a place of faith and in a place of responsibility. Is you don't go walking in there like you're killing snakes, as my mother used to say. And you have to walk delicately. And particularly when you're walking into somebody's subtle bodies. Walking delicately is very, very important because you can do a lot of damage if you don't.
Well, it's been such a pleasure being here with both of you, and I want to thank you for having me on your show.
I never heard the name of your institute. Could you tell us that before you?
It's Althea Gray's International School or Institute for Professional Healers.
Okay.
And you can do online. Do you teach out of Santa Fe?
Pardon?
Do you teach out of Santa Fe, or is this an online?
No, it will be. The core classes will be taught in Santa Fe. Some of the classes will be taught in New York. But a lot of them will be, the core things will be taught here in New Mexico.
Okay, and they can reach you at altheagray.com, and I think you have pretty much everything comes back to that website, doesn't it?
Yes, and it's Gray, Gray.
Yeah. Gray like the color, not, well, actually, they both can be used. Okay.
Interchangeable. Yeah,
it's interchangeable, isn't it? One of them, no, gray like the color is Gray. Grey is a last name only, is what I've been told. I don't know whether that's true or not. We'll let the lady with the last name be the final authority on that. So you have a number of things coming up. You said you have the dowsing conference in Chicago, I believe, and some other things that are coming up.
Well, the American Society of Dowsers, which is the oldest, I think, dowsing society in North America, and it's having a national conference in Vermont in June, and you can go to the American Society of Dowsers website to get information about that. And the U.S. Psychotronics Conference is in Chicago in July, and people can go to that website and get information about that.
Both of those sound fascinating. My grandfather was a dowser.
It used to be called divining.
Yes. Yeah. But he was very, very good at dowsing for lines that run underground. He could find not only water but electrical and things like that. They would hire him to come out before they would start digging to build.
Yes, those are wonderful people. I think there's a film out just came out that about it's called The Dowser, I believe.
Yeah, the water or something or other.
Oh, the water.
I just saw the promo on it. It looks fascinating. Oh, and speaking of movies, if any of you out there are Mad Max freaks, they're redoing Mad Max, and it's coming out, and it looks great. And I'm planning on actually going to the theater and seeing it. So, Raven, I know that you are available for tarot readings, and where would they be able to get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, Catherine, which is Kathryn, ravenwood.com, or my email to there will go to my other email, which is the letter K, ravenwood at Yahoo. I'm in Albuquerque. I do readings in my home, over the phone, or via Skype.
And Althea, I know you do healings as well, so and people should get in touch with you through your website for that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you for being on tonight. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the fact that you were willing to be rescheduled whenever I had a bit of a catastrophe earlier this year. There really wasn't nothing I could do about it. But anyway, you've been a wonderful guest, and this, I'm sure, is going to be a very popular show. So I'll put your information on the description on YouTube, and it'll also be up in the group in a few minutes. But thank you very much, and I want to thank everybody out there who's been here tonight, and tell your friends about it. That's the best way we spread the word. And the group is growing. We're reaching out because that's what we want to do. We want to be able to reach out. We want to love more people.
Because we love you.
Yeah. We love you all.
We love you.
Althea, how delightful to meet you.
Thank you. It's lovely to meet you all, too. Blessings.
Blessings.
Blessings. Good.